Testing, testing, testing. I'll say. Just one moment.
Thank you. Okay, I'll fill it up. Thank you.
Okay, we are ready to get started. Good evening and welcome to the regular board meeting for the South County Fire Board of Commissioners for February 18, 2025. I will call us to order and ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, board members, I believe tonight we've got Mark Lawrence on Zoom. I believe Michael Rowland is or will be on Zoom. Greg Kircher is not able to attend tonight. So it's just a kind of administrative updates. You have the draft agenda in front of you. Is there anything else for the draft agenda? If not, I'll move that we adopt the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That takes us to the consent agenda. Item number 4, which in 4A is the claims vouchers of today's date totaling $1,162,339.68. I will move the adoption of those claims vouchers. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Chan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. This evening, we have the meeting minutes for the February 4 regular meeting and the February 11 work session. I will move the adoption of those 2 sets of meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Teoflak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those 2 sets of meeting minutes. Is there discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward to item number 6, which is public comment. I'll start first in the room and then go online to our Zoom platform, starting first in the room. Is there any request for public comment here in the room? Any request for public comment here in the room? Not seeing any. I'll turn over to Ms. Blankenship and check to see if we have any request for public comment on our Zoom platform.
There is none.
Ms. Blankenship, thank you. I'll come back to the room one last time. Any request for public comment here in the room? And seeing no request for public comment, thank you. We will move forward in the agenda then to item number 7, which is the Fire Chief's report. Good evening, Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Chair Kenny and Board of Commissioners, staff, and the public. Paula. I've got a couple things for Chief's report. I'll keep it brief. One is on the 1st of March. We're hosting an annual Scout Day open house at Fire Station 11. That's Saturday, March 1st, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The events for scout groups and everyone in the community, and specifically the scout members, earn their learn about first aid, CPR, home fire drills, and disaster preparedness, and earn badges in respect. It's been a long time since I was a scout, so I don't know all the badges that they have now, but that's an event where they actually can earn some of their badges in that program. It's one of our bigger open houses of the year. Christy wanted to make sure that, it's always nice when we have some commissioners that show up at those open houses. So that's the 1st of March from 11 to 1 at Station 11. The second piece is I got notified, I think last Thursday. I know we've had conversations about tax incremental financing districts. The city of Linwood is looking to do a tax increment financing district around their civic center. We just got the details last Thursday. Staff is still reading the document, their Their analysis is quite large. They expect the TIF to take effect is either June 1st or July 1st, I forget on the date. Staff I've reached out to Richard Davis, legal counsel, just to go over it to make sure, we understand the stuff and what's the TIF, how long they plan on doing it. And then we'll go do our own financial analysis, and I'll work with CFO Bothwell to look at what their projections for what that means. And I also have Rich. Rich is going to be here the first meeting in March to kind of go back over what a tax incremental financing districts are. Now that we have one potentially in the RFA, it'll be good to actually have Richard have a conversation with the board about what that is. A little bit about this one specifically. There's a 90-day comment window that we will make appropriate comments with the help of Richard as we go. So just another thing I wanted the board to know, and there'll be more conversations specifically at our first meeting in March. And staff will have had some time to go through and can give you our perspective on the 25-year financial implications that are associated with it. I think more importantly, now that we have one that's going to be posed in the RFA, for Richards to make sure that we organizationally understand what those are, how they actually impact us, how they work, and where there's one, there's typically more that's going to follow. So those are the two things I have for the chief's report tonight. And otherwise, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Chief Eastman on the chief's report? Any questions for Chief Eastman? Thank you, Chief. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 8, which is the union report. My understanding is we don't have a union report tonight. We'll move forward in the agenda then to item number 9, which is unfinished business, starting at 9A, which is legislative update with Chief Eastman.
Good evening again. I know Chief Anderson and Chief Maxwell, Micah is on remote. We went down to the Ledge Conference a week ago Thursday. I will say from my perspective, it was, Melissa was there too. Very successful. We actually left, our last meeting was at 4:20 with Senator Elias's office. And that's probably the longest I've stayed as we did that. As you know, we had a House Bill 1654. And it had a hearing. We had a couple, Fire Marshal Sherman and Chief Anderson testified. We also had a sister agency, Central Pierce, that testified also. And for those that actually listened to some of the testifying that the Snohomish County Fire Marshal's office was obviously a non-support of what we were trying to accomplish. And there was other folks that spoke at the same time. We did hire lobbyists. I think we brought that up at the last board meeting with that. He had a chance to talk to the chair of the local government committee, and in a sense talk to Representative Donahue. And it's our bill is not coming out of committee, at least for 2025. Staff, I had the privilege when I was in Las Vegas last week. I spent quite a bit of time with Chief Morrow, who's the fire chief of Central Pierce. For those that don't know, Central Pierce, when we got to Olympia, one of their deputy chiefs came up and thanked us for the work we had done, and then proceeded to let us know that they sent correspondence to the county chief's legislative group in support of our legislation. And I did not realize it at the time. I did when I was down with Chief Morrow, is he was reaching out to not the local master builders, but the state group, and I forget the acronym,
BIAW?
BIAW, and actually talked to their number 2. And so staff, I've reached back out to them, hopefully in the next couple weeks. Both Central Pierce and South County staff will get together. For a couple things. One, for us to look at both organizations. So we both grown quite a bit. They're roughly real close to the same size, real close to, I mean, I say sister department because we are most like them and they're most like us, and get an idea of the growth we've had over the last 10 years between the two agencies, how we can continue to work together as we move forward, because we're two of the largest agencies in the state. And then talk a little bit about some collective bargaining things that they've done, some unique things down in their city or in their district, and then talk about a strategy and a roadmap moving forward with our legislation. They want to see the legislation passed, and so we're going to work and kind of figure what staff strategy would be moving forward with our legislation effort or legislative effort, specifically with that House bill, and then we'll be in constant conversation with you, the board, of where we think we need to go. And, if there's resource needs to go along with that, what those would be. So that's our bill 1654. I guess I'd like to thank everybody, because it was a lift on not just staff, but the electeds, and labor was a big part of that. AJ Johnson specifically. We got the bill down to Olympia right after session started, and we got a hearing. And a lot of people don't get that far. So we have work to do, though, and we'll continue to help narrow what that workload is, and then come up with a strategy of how to move forward. Or I think we're going to be able to move forward, but if we come that there's a big old roadblock, we'll have a conversation about what that means and what the RFA should do or shouldn't do. So that's our House bill. I did get a question from Commissioner Lawrence, and it's specific to House Bill 1966, and it has to do with having fire district employees able to do public works projects up to $300,000. The legislation, and I think they got that specifically last year. Prior to that, there was always a conflict between fire districts and the auditor's office about having fire department employees in districts doing public works work. And it was very, very vague. Last year, they put a dollar amount threshold on it of $300,000 to kind of stop the conflict we have between the SAO's office and the fire districts, because the fire districts always took the position, well, the law is silent on it, so we can do it. Now they have the House bill that 1966 takes that dollar threshold away, which then makes it really difficult for fire districts to have any of their employee group do any of the public works type work. Doesn't necessarily impact us because we have staff that does that. But some of your smaller agencies, that's how they get a lot of their work done. And I know Brian Schnur has wrote a statement in opposition of it. I would assume most of the fire districts and RFAs will be opposed to it. What I did get from Richard, when I briefly discussed this when I was on the phone with them today, is the purchasing statutes are very specific to fire districts. Not so, the RFA is there really isn't a whole lot of purchasing legislation that affects RFAs. We've adopted purchasing policies. The board has, and we just updated them recently to put in place things that we need to follow, best practices. But it's important to note that the statute for us, it's not totally silent, but it doesn't have near the restrictions as some of the other municipalities do. And so based on the policy that we've adopted, and we did some things and drafted that we had the ability to do small works work with staff. If this legislation were to pass, we'd have to amend those policies. And I can't remember if it was I don't know if it's in the RFA plan, but we would have to make adjustments because it would impact us based on the things we've done within our purchasing policy and the formation of the RFA. So I wanted to make sure, as Commissioner Lawrence asked that question, I wanted to make sure I gave a brief on that specific piece of legislation. And so with that, I'll look at Sean or Todd, Micah or Melissa, based on anything else I missed with regards to our trip to Olympia and some of the other things. So with that, I'll pause.
Ask your questions. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that $300,000 limit? How does, are we competing with the public work or you just, What it-
There's a. Last year, they amended legislation for purchasing for fire districts and they put a dollar threshold on it. So what they said was, is that you could use fire department employees to do public works work up to $300,000. Prior to 2024, there was no dollar amount and the auditor's office said, you can't do it. And the fire districts, and I'm paraphrasing what Richard told me, was because the law's silent on it, we can. They put this in place that actually solved that problem. So in other words, we're not at conflict with the auditor's office anymore. Now what they want to do is the bill I just referred to takes that dollar amount away. And really what that means is fire districts will not be able to use firefighters anymore to do small works or to do public works work anymore like this legislation enabled. So
so is that one of the rural area people, they just, because they have firefighter, available and they do the work for the city for someone else to
yeah,
make money?
or they have that, they're a firefighter on their off time, they do construction work and so they can do certain things.
Oh,
I don't know how many years ago we did that, because I'm sure when District 1 and District 11 did some of that work too, right? That doesn't necessarily impact us today, but a lot of our counterpart, smaller fire district agencies, that's how they get things done. Like if they need to build a dorm room, firefighters go and put in a wall and do the work. And my understanding based on what Richard explained is if this bill passes, they would have to hire people to go do it in the future. And some of our smaller fire districts
Okay.
out in the state don't have those kind of economic means.
okay.
Commissioner Wittes.
Just to comment on that, I know just before I retired, I think it was Monroe that got a finding. And what they did, I believe it was a sewer line they had to fix. And they have firefighters that have their own equipment. For their personal jobs, they went over there, did it. It was just the cost of the equipment that they used and the other people dug it and they got paid hourly. So it was for like half price and the auditor had a problem with it. And that's what this whole thing was about.
Okay.
Questions for Chief Eastman on the legislative report? Any questions? Chief Eastman, I did want to thank Chief Anderson and Deputy Chief Sherman for testifying in person. That's always a challenging prospect to testify in front of the legislature. I thought they did a nice job in support of our good job in support of our bill. And so thanks for being willing to do that. It's not easy, but somebody's got to do it. So I appreciate you stepping up to the plate. And I did watch it, and it was good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward on the agenda then to item 9B, which is excess liability insurance. I think that's with Chief Eastman and Mr. Bothwell.
So it looks like it's me. So sorry, it's the Tuesday after our Monday holiday. It's kind of one of those, I'll apologize ahead of time. So if you go back, and I don't remember, it was 3 meetings ago where we got authorization to purchase the excess to the excess 5,000 liability. And I guess I would ask you to review the agenda bill. There are some things that aren't, when I spoke, I think the initial cost was 105,000, is kind of what I referred to. It's now, actually, now that we got the official quote back, it's 125,000. So it's 20,000 more than what I briefed the board at that meeting. And the other piece is, it's just, there's some exclusions in it. And I'm going to have Chris go over, because he's the one that actually talked to Alicia on it. And we'll tell you the exclusions that we weren't aware of when I briefed the board. And so really where I'd like to go is let the board understand the exclusions that are part of that excess, that 5 million excess, and then make sure we still want to move forward on that excess liability or not. And so with that, I'll let Chris give you the details of what's excluded.
Well, there aren't a lot of details. It's pretty simple. So the current excess policy includes general liability, property, and management liability. The supplemental excess, when they came back, the underwriters said that they won't include management liability. So it's general and property. And then the price was a little different than what had been presented initially as well. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, what was that excluding?
management liability is excluded.
Do you have a definition of management liability? Does that include the board or,
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I think it's
so charge more for less?
But is it include or exclude?
Yeah, you might.
excluded.
Included, excluded.
It's excluded,
So if I behave badly, they're not gonna cover.
right?
Okay.
So I think the reason we want the excess liability was for
Right.
the claims that are part of our general liability but I didn't talk about that. It's a little bit more dollars than we briefed when we talked to you before, and we didn't anticipate them excluding the management component from that. And I just want to make sure before we actually execute the additional $5 million of excess, which I'm calling excess, so make sure we're all on the same page, that the board is in concurrence with that, with the additional information with that. And I guess
Did you
with
give
that,
any
and then-
reason why this excluded from there?
They didn't. It's a new policy, so they had to shop it around, obviously, to other providers. They are going to they're looking for another provider that might do all of it, but they don't have any quotes back, and there was only one that was really sort of viable, and they think it's going to be more expensive. So everything, I think, when Chief came in initially, I think things were moving really quickly. You all showed interest in a supplemental excess policy. They came back and said, we can do this. We think it's going to be about this cost. You all authorized it for him to go forward with that. And I think that the purpose of tonight is just to come back and say, there's been a change. You probably were expecting it to be the same as the current excess policy. It's not, and here's why. And so I think what Chief would like out of tonight is to either reaffirm that decision to move forward, knowing that it doesn't include management liability, or maybe we wait and see if we can get this other quote, or just looking for some direction, right?
But it still covered the excess $5 million for the building and other stuff, right? Well, I still think it's worth it, for that additional, because I just see any building, it just have to be. So that's my humble opinion.
So Commissioner Fernhoff, then Commissioner Teoflat, Commissioner Fernhoff.
CFO Bothwell, you mentioned that they're out to market right now and possibly sourcing another carrier, I guess is what we call them. What's the timeline on that? How long would we have to wait? Is this like a couple of months or a year or?
I suspect we could get something back, an estimate within probably a few days, maybe a week. I mean, trying to think where we are in the month. I think we don't have any more meetings this month. So by the next meeting, I bet we could have an estimate or know if they're actually going to come back and propose on that.
Okay, it's just my feeling that I'd like to have more information, more options before I make a decision necessarily putting us into this. I think this is a great primer for that conversation. And if we have to wait, 2 weeks, it's not a real big deal, at least in my point of view. Thank you.
Commissioner Teoflat.
And this is for the coverage from 15 million to 20 million, is that right?
Yeah, it's technically 11. The first one's 11. Then we have 5. Those are all
Okay.
fully executed and paid for. So it would be the 16 to 21.
Gotcha. Okay. I was kind of on the fence about this. And now previously it was 105,000, you said? Is that right? So now it's even more. So I would say I'm on the fence and would like to get more quotes. Yeah.
Other discussion, I'll throw in that the big ones to me are still covered, which is the general, and I believe the auto is included in that. And to me, those are the bigger ones, the management. I mean, I guess I'd like to have it, and if we're talking 2 weeks, I think it's worth waiting to see if there's something there. But I do like the extra 5 million. Any other comments? I think then the direction of the board is to hold off, wait for the next meeting, see what comes up on the possible other quote.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. That will move us forward to item 9C, which is our organizational roadmap with Chief Eastman.
So I'm going to let Chief Maxwell start the conversation. Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, board. So just to kind of frame this up and lead it off, I think we're all aware that, we have headwinds and challenges to look at as we go into the future: call volume, staffing, growth. And the whole objective of these sequence of presentations is to just really inform and equip the board, frame it up with what are the challenges and what are potential solutions so that staff can work with the board to figure out a path that's predictable, logical, sustainable. And so that's just really framing up. I know we've told you before, but I think it's good to frame this, tee it up before Chief speaks. So just a quick review of the presentations. The first one was Chief Eastman's introduction. The second one, Director Cullen talked about staffing. I talked about just really understanding how we are a large metro department. CFO Bothwell talked about resources. And tonight, Chief Eastman's going to talk about the capital, or review the capital facility plans. And then at our next meeting, HR Director Cullen will be back to talk about admin staffing. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chief.
Thanks. So this will probably be one of the more brief segments, because it's really review of what we identified at the end of 22 about the capital needs for the next 25 or 30 years. In your package, you saw the executive summary. I think you've seen that before, the phase 2. What I'm presenting in the PowerPoint that's in front of you, if you remember, we were slated back then to go get a debt service in 22. I've updated what we currently have to show us going to debt service in 26. Now, that doesn't actually mean the board's has made the decision to do that, but I think, in my conversation with the board, at least I want the board to be in a position where if they choose to, we would be in a position to go do that. And so, let's see if I can go. So these slides are very familiar to you. It's the foundation of the roadmap. So if you look at the first, I think it's slide 4. That was what was in the executive summary for 2022 when we adopted it. So if you look, it's got us going to bond in 2022. It's got the sites that have been identified. There's 14 there, including some locution updates at the stations that aren't on here. Right around 234 million based on what they projected in the timeline that you see. Obviously, we're at a spot where we didn't go to bond or do any funding in 22, although we did start, and we're in a place with Station 22 where we're actually in the planning process, and we're actually more on track for Station 22, where, you'll get a brief on that here sometime early March, probably the work session of March if Commissioner Kenny, if we're willing to put that on the agenda for that work session to give you an update on Station 22. But this is where we were. If I go to the next slide, what I've done is we've updated this to show bond in 2026, and I know the font's small. And if you remember when we got the work from TCA and Mr. Harris, they put an escalator in the out years for the cost. So what I've done is I just moved everything out 4 years as a benchmark of what we did in what we got from them in 2022. So obviously we need to vet these timelines, and in the next couple, 3-4 months with the Capital Facilities Planning Subcommittee, we'll work through some of these issues. Jason and the rest of the ops side need to know what stations can we do simultaneously, which stations can we not do simultaneously, which stations can we put temporary housing at, which stations do we need to abandon and how are we going to provide, the operational services that we need to as a result. You got the infill fire stations. We own the property at Manor. We just purchased property all the Wilmore Parkway. We're working on property for the Heights or Value Village. And then you've got the support facilities that we've had some conversations about. But hopefully we'll be able to have those conversations in the subcommittee, come back with the board and have a conversation with the ultimate goal of having I guess, a realistic timeline. That if we do choose to go to devoted debt, we're in a position to be able to do that in 26. I think the other thing that we need to do with this conversation is DA Davison, Mr. Nelson, who most of us in the room have heard of, to give us an education on, bonding 101. I think we'll do a little bit of work in the subcommittees, both in finance and capital finance, HR and the capital facilities, and then bring him in for a meeting with the full board, because there's some conversation go along with this. Are we going to do one vote and do the full $300 million and then do serial issuances of it? Are we going to take it at smaller bites and go do a vote and then later on go do a second vote? I mean, there's pros and cons to all of it. Some of it I don't totally understand. I know CFO Bothwell and I have talked about some of the options that you have. We know that if you have money and you actually issue debt, you can only keep that, 3-4 years and you got to expend it. I don't know the question. If we do the full deal, we get it approved in 27, can I take my last issuance in 2037? I don't know some of those rules. Mr. Nelson will help us through that. But if you look at the way we've laid it out, if we do debt service in 26 and we just followed this plan, the last site would be completed at the end of 2037. So I get that's only 10 years, probably a very expedited schedule. But so this has been updated. Now, the one caveat I'll say is we just did the escalators based on the 2022 cost. If we know what's going on with Station 22 came in right around 2 million more than what we projected it to be in 26 because of where we were at the economy. Now you've got what's going on, the whole tariff conversation that's going to affect. You've got what happened in Southern California and rebuilding. And so there's some pressures outside of our control that may influence what the dollars and cents are for this plan at the end of the day. And as we we'll have TCA update these numbers based on the best available information. So we'll have, more at least updated numbers of what that is. But this shows about 254 million. Remember, 22 is no longer in this plan because we're building it now. And my guess is we're probably $28 to $35 million light just because of the 2 million per station escalator that we know we have with Station 22. And then I just kind of broke it down in stuff you've seen. These numbers are updated too, and the construction year has been updated. And it kind of gives you an idea of the existing fire stations. And remember, this was before everybody annexed in. But with that said, this, Station 19 is still owned by the city. We just treat it as if it's ours, right? And so this is still actually relevant to where we are until Edmonds annexes in. New fire stations, you've got Manor, you've got the Alderwood Mall Parkway, you've got the Heights. We talk about Cascadia. We haven't given it a lot of thought because, to be honest, that's the one that's the furthest out. And we've had lots of conversations about will we really need it or not. And with the city of Mill Creek annexing the RFA, and with us having Station 76, and there's some opportunity if the city of Mill Creek annexes south, we may be at a position where we move Station 76 to the north and don't need the Cascadian station. as a result of the recent annexations, and there's still work to be done on that. And we've not moved forward on land purchase for that station. We've identified it. We're also fortunate enough, it's got a standalone emergency department real close to where that is. And we've had conversations about, we could have an EMS only station running out of Swedish Mill Creek if need be, as we move.
Yes, for a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Chan.
So if you move to 76 up north, so what does that mean? You're gonna build a new station there?
Yeah, so the city of Mill Creek has, and I can't remember the name of the property. On the north side of the city, they own I think 20 acres up there. And there's been talk, if they annex south, and they take their Fulmuga south, it probably incorporates another station into the RFA as a result of that. And at that point, it may make sense to move 76 a little bit further north. And then if you look at the gap, where
But we have-
Cascadian is,
This is a land, so we have to build it.
we'd have to build the station, but we
Okay.
wouldn't need, wouldn't need 76 anymore. And
So-
so rather than have 76 and Cascadian, you would just have a station.
So what happened to 76? What happened to the station, the building?
I want to say the city has the right to buy it back.
They have.
The city has the right to buy it back. Yeah, if I remember right.
Yeah,
right?
but- Yeah,
So, but now that's years away, right? I know City of Mill Creek, just like all cities, look at potential of annexations as they look at the growth management and all those other pieces. And I know
So,
Mill Creek's doing
the
the
place
same.
they annexing, is that in unincorporated area? South County Fire?
No,
area?
they would annex, well, I don't think their South Muga is us at all. If they were to go east, right? So if they go up 164th to where they had dispute with Linwood, that would be that would be RFA. If they go south, I don't know I don't know if there's much that's RFA, but it's mostly Surfer District 7,
So, okay, so. we get-
right?
Okay.
And I don't think they go much north, if I remember right. I think it's more south and east. Yep. So, but I guess what I'd say with Cascadian is I think we're at a spot where when we identified that station, we didn't have Mill Creek. If Mill Creek grows over the next 10 years, like we think most of the cities will at least do some form of annexation, it makes sense that you move that station a little bit north because you got 21 and having that station north covers Thomas Lake and some of that area 12. It works actually very well for us if we're going to build a station anyway. Don't move that one forward and we have one less station and can provide the service we need to provide.
No, I just thinking in my head, are we getting more revenue? Or if it's server, then we get more revenue, but not, not just.
Yeah.
Repeating.
The big Muga that they're talking about to the south would actually increase the RFA.
Okay,
But again, we got a partner to the east, District 7, that would have a negative impact with it that we'd have to work through.
okay.
Right. I mean, because somebody's providing the service and it's unincorporated, somebody's collecting taxes for fire service. So, if they go all the way south, it impacts the fire station for Surfer. So there's other conversations to be had. I'm talking very high level
Right,
and,
right.
and the options of why we haven't done a whole lot of work on a fire station off of Cascadian is because I think with Mill Creek being part of the RFA and the potential of them annexing the Fulmuga area, it makes sense to move a station to the north that we already have than to build a new station. I think Cascadian's a little bit too north
Okay,
at the end for where we go. And I think that actually fills in quite nicely. But again, we were talking 20 years away before we got there and that a lot of things can happen between now and then. So on that. And then you got the support facilities, which I know we've talked about a little bit. One of the challenges that we do have from a support perspective in the RFA, this building's maxed on the top floor. And we've got space downstairs, but we need to renovate it. That's what this does is updates this building. It also does some things to the classroom in this site. It actually puts lockers and showers and stuff out on our training site, which is probably appropriate for where we're going. But it also takes into account the other support work, we've got a logistics division, and we're quite a large organization. We don't have a whole lot of warehouse space. And if we learn from the pandemic, and one of the things we talked about is being able to stay in the fight for 3 to 6 months, and have enough supplies on hand to do that with nothing coming. And we don't have enough just physical space for that. And so I know the logistics groups is working on what size they need, and some of the stuff we can have can sit in a warehouse that has no heat. Other stuff we have needs to be 100% environmentally controlled, right? If we're going to do that. So we do have a need for logistics space, and really is to ensure we have the consumable needs to stay. And I'll use the pandemic because it's the most recent past for us, is to stay in the fight. If logistics goes down or we have a shortage of something, it doesn't matter what it is, we still have to, I mean, the expectation for the public is we're providing the service. And so, that team is doing great work. But we got pallets out there that are wrapped in plastic and got tarps over the top because we just don't have enough storage place and rack space for pallets. And so, part of the CAP plan is to get us to where we need to be. And it also includes apparatus maintenance facility. Now, and right now we got a really good deal with Linwood. We've expanded that agreement. They've hired more people, but we need to be in a position, and we should have a better understanding here by midsummer. If our long-term plans with Linwood are really what's best for both of us, or do we need to start planning a long-term strategy for us to be doing that work? I'm going to say in the context of the facility plan ourselves. And what does that mean? And we need to have the support infrastructure to be able to do that work. And then we've got, 15 fire stations, potentially soon to be 18 with the facilities plan. You've got this building, you got a training site. And I've got 3 guys that do a great job maintaining it, but we don't give them a lot of space to actually do the work. And so we need some facility maintenance space. And they're still working on what does that actually mean. And so that's what the support facilities is in a nutshell. And why is it important to the organizational roadmap of what we're talking about? Well, one, it's a big revenue. It's a revenue issue, and it's part of our long-term revenue strategy. When you talk deployment and you talk about staffing and you talk about resources, you talk about people, you talk about engines, you talk about ladders. I mean, everything you've heard to date, if we add a fire station, it impacts what you've heard or what the future looks like. And for us to be able to plan and give a realistic timeline and dollars and cents and the number of people, having the capital facilities plan in a place where we know what that is, so we can show what those mean. And then you have, if we like that, I'll just use the infill fire stations one, because that's new equipment as people. If we know about when we're looking at bringing those stations online, knowing we got to get people hired, 2 to 3 years ahead of time. Right now, you got to buy ambulances 50 months or whatever, it's some ungodly number, engines 2 or 3 years ahead of time. I mean, there are some big logistical pieces that we need to be thinking about. It's not just we're going to build a station and turn switch and we're there. We need to make sure we have engines and enough SCBAs and staffing and trained staff, and what does that look like? And the most important piece is, where do you resource it, and how do you cover the expense, and how does that fit into our long-term strategy? And so the facility plan that we have really does help inform the other conversations you've already had and the future conversations we do, which is why it's an important piece of the conversation. I wanted to just give everybody an update of what the plan is, and update a little bit, because I know the dollar amount's a big deal, and with the updates and the fact that we've delayed it a little bit, the fact that 22 is already built, added about $35 million to the originally what we talked about. Dollars aren't going to get any cheaper. It's not going to get less expensive. I think we know that. And then we know we're going to have to true this up to what's happening in the economy today. to help inform the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. So I guess I would ask if you haven't read the executive summary that was in the packet, I'd ask that you do that. If you have any additional questions, the phase 2 documents and the phase 1 documents are still available. Some of you have them in booklets, some don't. If there's questions that staff or that the board has, please ask them. Because with everything else we have going, the goal is come time when we're really in the heat of the budget conversation, hopefully we have a plan, not necessarily that we're going to go forward in any particular year, but I, as the fire chief, would like to make sure that there is a plan that if the board chooses to move forward, that we're in a position to be able to do that. Because I think it has an impact on everything we do moving forward. And I think we need to be thinking about, what does the economic realities mean with all of that? And it may mean that timeline's way too fast based on everything, and we need to delay it for this because we need to be able to afford the people to be put in those stations. And that's part of the conversation and part of what staff hopefully will be able to put together, late spring, I hope, and give you a kind of an outline of what we're thinking, and then have some continued conversation and maybe have it bleed into some of the budget conversations. So with that, I'll stop. If there's any questions, I'll take them. I'm hoping, Commissioner Lawrence, that we can get a capital facility subcommittee meeting sometime next week. We'll reach out through Melissa and make that happen. And with that, I'll stop. If there's any questions, we'll answer them, but that's all I have for tonight.
Questions for Chief Eastman? Any questions for Chief Eastman on the organizational update? Commissioner Teofleck.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about the bond issuance, like the go all in at once or like do it in thirds. Because I kind of think that as a taxpayer, it's like more palatable to say I'm gonna vote for something for 100 million as opposed to 300 million. So.
Other questions? Chief, I did have a question for you and a comment. My recollection, you mentioned that the first, let's call it the grid in the handout is from 2022. And my recollection from that grid is in terms of like the things that were necessary or planned for the stations, there may have been a brief update in 2022, but my recollection is based on 2021 data. And so we're sitting in 2025, and so we're 4 years removed at least from the data. And as the years start to march by, at what point do we essentially have to go back and refresh that data to see where we are on actual costs?
So I'm
Of
gonna-
course, that costs money to do that, but at some point, clearly a year removed, 2 years removed, you don't, but then you get to 4 years.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying 4 years is the amount, but 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, somewhere in there, we're going to have to refresh that. Unfortunately, that takes money, but actually maybe more importantly, it takes time.
Mhm.
And so I'm just wondering when should we be thinking that needs to be done?
So we're going to have a conversation with Mr. Harris. And I think the benefit we have is we're building a fire station, right? And Brian's doing the work and his team for Station 22. So we've got some recent with what they predicted, what Station 22 is actually coming, because they just had it. They've got an update on the cost. And so, but before we can actually bring you a plan forward, we're going to have to get the numbers updated, in my opinion, so the board knows the total dollar amount we're looking at. Because if you want to go do one vote and serial issuances, you need to know what that number is. So I think the conversation starts with Brian before the end of the week. And we'll see what he says. So the numbers that I gave you just were the 4% escalator that we had in the plan. But I think with the recency that Brian has with pricing out Station 22, he may be in a position, maybe not, that for the fire stations that are this similar, he can put a flat $2 million on top of the escalators that we've had. I don't know if it's that easy. or we go and have their estimators just estimate what we've estimated. And I think that's money well spent as we go and have the conversation. Now, here's the thing is we'll go do that. And then, the tariff, the stuff that's happening nationally and internationally, I don't know if we really know what those impacts are going to be until down the road. And this may be one where we need to, we get it updated for 2025 in anticipation for 26. And then we say, and then you better add A, B, and C as we don't know what's going to happen, but you need to prepare. And so estimate it to be higher. And I don't know how, we'll have to talk to Mr. Nelson about how all that works. So I say we need to do it now. And then, I'm going to come back in November and say, the outside external influences have just added 15% to anything you build, right? But I think we need to do it now, and that conversation staff will have before the end of the week. And maybe we'll get a little bit of flavor, because I think we want to bring Brian back with your updated cost and those kind of things in the work session in March, and we'll maybe have a better answer.
Thank you. The comment that I had was relates to a component of the plan related to shops maintenance. And that is, I've been happy with the service that we've received from the Linwood shop, but I do take the light rail many days per day over the top of the Edmonds School District shop, located just south of the Linwood northern terminus of the light rail. And that is a large yard. Of course, it's built for handling school buses, which are as big as, I don't know, weight wise, but certainly as long as our fire trucks. And so I've been thinking about them and whether there is a partnership down the road with Edmonds School District, because they've got quite a large facility there and a large yard that, of course, if we moved all of our apparatus in there, it'd be bustling with things. But currently there's a bunch of space there. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a thought regarding partners that are close by that are doing significant heavy maintenance. I don't know, just a thought. Edmonds School District.
I think that goes with what we have in the current plan is us. We have dirt that we could build this on, and to build it, which I would say in my world is the most expensive way to do business. I think looking for other partners, and the school district's one, you got Sound Transit's another. You've got Everett. You've got several people that actually do that and have large space. And as their fleets go more electric, and there are some opportunities, and I think you have the same kind of opportunities when it comes to warehouse space. You don't necessarily have to build either. You can purchase something. We've talked about a Walmart that's no longer a Walmart, a Kmart that's no longer a Kmart. You've got some of those that it's not just the fact that they have a warehouse that you can store, but they got bays in the back, maybe not for fire trucks, but staff vehicles and ambulances they could probably maintain. So those are still in the back of all of our mind as I guess I don't want to say, because we say build a new, that there's a whole bunch of other options that we need to explore. We just want to be realistic with the total dollar amount. The most expensive way, in my opinion, to do is to purchase property and build. We would have to do our due diligence and see, is there a partner that we may still have to build, but it's a place that makes more sense, or they have space they don't need. There's other options that you go with that. And so Jason and Curtis and the rest of the team that are looking at those, they bring those options up a lot and say, did you know this building's open? And we looked at the Walmart that was closing its doors, and the challenge we're going to have is cities wanting us to take it and not let it be a retail sales tax generator. So there's some other challenges with some of those things. That's not necessarily pertaining to the Edmonds School District and their bus barn. But it is when you're out, looking at property that the local economy and the folks that give you permits and zone it want to make sure they're getting sales tax if it's appropriate for sales tax. So we've had those conversations, Commissioner Kenny. I think we need to continue to have them and not lose sight of the fact that we don't necessarily have to build if there's something out there that works.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments on organizational roadmap? No?
And I forgot to say, we actually, when Mill Creek annexed in, I've got an amendment supplemental for Station 76. What we don't have for Station 76 is the price to update it. And that will be part of, as we go reach out to Brian and have the conversation about updating numbers, we'll have to add Station 76 to that mix. As you know, you didn't see it. I have the supplemental of the condition of the station. I don't have a cost to get it updated or seismically and those kind of pieces. That would be something we would do with the next update.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments? No? Great. Thank you. We will move forward then in the agenda to item number 9D, and that's the SCEMS update with Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair. We come back to you again with the EMS Task Force, ILA. As you all remember, we had a very unstable umbrella county EMS organization. We put together a task force to figure out a better plan moving forward, come up with an ILA. We received input from Commissioner Wittes on reducing the term to 2 years with 1 year out. Liaison Swisher say it was more than a recommendation that it should be fire chiefs. And Commissioner Rowland on being very cognizant of parliamentarian issues in our bylaws. So we have taken those into considerations. We have fixed the 2 year, 1 year out issue. Task force voted on it. And we are at the point where we're recommending to the board to pass the ILA for us. And with that, I'd take any questions.
Well, Chief, is there any other changes since we last talked about the
No, sir.
documents?
We voted, and the only vote that passed was for the change that we requested with the 2 year, 1 year out.
Okay.
There are a few other minor requests and they did not pass the task force vote.
Great, thank you. Why don't we just take general questions, general comments? Commissioner Frenhoff.
Yeah, well, we had obviously input that we gave back to the folks there. What was the biggest issue outside of our organization that another organization voted or voiced that we should be cognizant of as well, whether it passed committee or not, or was voted on? Was there anything outstanding that was kind of like aha moment? Or
I don't think so. There was a request to change the 7th position from a board position to a fire chief position. And then I think the other ones were super small, but that was the one of consequence. And that was declined by the task force.
okay, thank you.
Any other general questions, comments? Because I think we're ready for action then on the ILA. So. I'll go ahead and make a motion to that we approve the interlocal agreement with member agencies for Snohomish County EMS Agency. Second by Commissioner Wittes. It's been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement. Is there discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Commissioner Rowland, go ahead.
I've been vocal in kind of my skepticism of this plan for a while now, and I still don't believe that this is the right direction to go in. I think it's a lot of money to throw at a problem that right now boils down to the current system would work better if the chiefs would be showing up instead of their alternates. And that's been said as one of the biggest weaknesses. And yet that's not something they've even tried yet. It establishes a over $1 million organization that, to basically, I guess, staff a few positions. pay for rent in Snow 911, pay for some of their head count, and still has not laid out any sort of plans of what its kind of mission is, how it's going to make up for how things failed before, except for to throw money at it. I have the deepest respect for everybody that worked on this. I know it's been a lot of hard work, but I still don't believe that this is the right solution going forward. I think we need to figure out what is this organization going to actually contribute to Snohomish County, to what we are trying to do, and see if $1 million price tag on that is really justifiable. Because I just that's the one thing I've kept asking for, is how is this going to succeed where it's failed in the past? And it's just, well, the Chiefs will be involved. I would have liked to have seen them been involved already if they were serious about making it successful. So I don't think that putting a staff position that an executive director that's making over $100 and some odd $1,000 a year, which I still don't think is a full-time position even, or full-time work to be done. So I just think by and large, this is overkill for what we're trying to accomplish and what we'll actually get out of it. So I oppose the formation of this independent group, and we'll be voting no unless the other commissioners can convince me otherwise. And I urge you guys to think about this vote seriously, because I think it is not the wisest use of our funds as well.
Thank you. Other discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? I would just offer that I think that this is a continuation of solving a problem related to EMS in the county that is, it's maturing, and it is an improvement, and it's all of the agencies in the county coming together on this important work, which for us ends up being 83, 84, 85% of our work. So the bringing an element of improvement of the quality to this work, I think, is important, because it's such a large part of what we do. And it brings more organization, more focus to it. The advantage to the reduction in the duration is we'll see. And there's an opportunity for this to take off and be successful, kind of under the wing and with the foundation of Snow 911, or it could potentially move in a different direction, but it wasn't enjoying success in its former form. It needs to transform. This is a cooperative opportunity amongst all the agencies, and I think it's got is it guaranteed success? No, but I think it's got a good shot at success for one of the most important functions in the county, which is providing EMS across the county. So I guess I would say we'll see, and I think it's got a good opportunity to be successful. It's got to exist in some format. It's just not working well in its current format. I think this is an opportunity to do better, and so I'm hopeful that this will be find a partial solution or a complete solution in this form. But I guess we'll see, and our duration of time is less on this contract if it doesn't, in fact, if it's not successful. Other discussion on the motion? Commissioner Furnoff.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Chair Kenny said. With the absence of a viable solution and the struggle that we've gone through, it's time to take action in some form.
Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Commissioner Rowland, nay. The motion passes on a 6-1 vote.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Chief, anything else? Chief Maxwell, anything else related to the SCEMS?
No, I appreciate bringing this to finality. It's been a lot of work for 2 years from a very, I mean, everyone there was really dedicated, and we were doing 3-hour meetings every other week, and a lot of work went into this, and it feels really good to move forward. And now we will have people like Chief Eastman and another new group to really distill it into a great organization. So thank you very much.
I guess I'd like to add thanks for the board's patience. This has been it's been a long process. And and a lot of our concerns were addressed by the committee. And I think we're at a spot where I'm happy that the board approved the ILA so we can move forward. And now it's up to us to help make it successful, and we have our options if need be. So again, thanks for the patience of the board. This has been a long one. And we've had some ups and some downs, and but I think it was all appropriate to get us to the end where we are now. So again, thanks for your patience on it, because it's one of those long, drawn out processes that I think will lead to success in the end. So thank you.
Well, Chief Eastman, thank you for your work on this. Chief Maxwell, your work also, and Chief Hughes also for his work on this, because it has been a twisty, windy road on this. So well, I appreciate your efforts. All right, that moves us forward in the agenda to our committee updates. Item 10 on the agenda, starting with capital facilities. Commissioner Lawrence, do you have an update for us?
Well, I think we got a pretty good update there from the chief.
That's true. Okay. All right, that takes us then to Finance and Human Resources, Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, we're gonna have a meeting on Thursday, 1:00.
Great, thank you. That takes us to Intergovernmental, Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you, Chair. We're trying to schedule a meeting within the next week to get it all set up and done, but just to let you know, things in Edmonds are starting to run fast. Staff's been working very hard and diligently on the different meetings they're having. Currently, there's another one coming up Saturday. It's Northwest Civic Circle. There's a couple of those like Lions Club and a couple Rotary clubs that are happening. Those are happening. Staff's taking care of them. But the one thing I want to bring to everybody's attention is, if you want to call it the town halls at the city. So it's at City Hall at the Brackett Room, and they're coming up. There's 5 of them, February 27th, March 5th, March 27th, April 5th, and April 10th. And I'm sure we're both going to be there. Any other board members that would like to be there, feel free. But that's more where I think we're needed as far as commissioners go. Any of the other ones, everybody's more than welcome to go to, but just kind of coordinate that so we know where they're located. And that's pretty much what we got.
Sounds good. Thank you. That takes us to Snow 911, Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, we'll be meeting this Thursday, and I'm sure the ILA will be part of the discussion there, and probably could be confetti and champagne or something.
Can I add something for what 911 is doing? So if the board, I know you're aware that they hired a consultant to look at a needs assessment for potentially what a future CAD would look like. We hired, sorry, their name escapes me. But they're a national group. They're going to be on site the last week of February, the first week of March. They will be in this room. That we got three different locations for them to do, to work with the jails, the law enforcement, and fire. We have representatives from the RFA that deal with different aspects to actually help with that needs assessment. So just for the board, if you're in and about, you'll see this room busy for all of next week and the first week of March. As we're one of the hubs for the group coming in and doing needs assessment for what potentially a future CAD would need to have in it. And I guess at the end, I guess I don't want to infer we're leaving our current vendor, but making sure that what we have is actually what we need. And if there is something else out there, what would we be looking for and how we do it? That work starts in earnest next Monday.
I do have questions on,
Commissioner Chan, yes.
yeah, Snow 911. So when are they gonna finish? When they're gonna move into the building?
I think we're looking at, well, the system goes in April, right? And then the actual move-in date, I think that's way off, and yeah, it's like summertime.
Or this year? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, did you want to pick out a spot or anything?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That concludes my report, sir.
Great, thank you. That moves us forward to item 11 in the agenda, which is commissioner comments. And for this, I did have a question for Chief Eastman. If I recall correctly, the Edmonds administrative, like chief presentation, is that next Tuesday at the City of Edmonds?
Yeah, my apologies. That was slated to be in my chief's report and I forgot.
And that'll be you making a presentation to the Edmonds City Council?
Yep. So we have our normal operational, the PowerPoint. It's not quite done yet. Christie's got it. What we'll do is I think the city wanted it by Thursday afternoon. When we get it completed, I'll make sure we send a copy to the board. There's really no big surprises in it from what we've done in the past. I can tell you the big thing is the neighborhood utilization factor, and we're now providing more service to the city of Edmonds. We're outside the 10%. So I think at the end it'll be a very straightforward. I think Christie's finishing the rest of the work. We do present on the 25th. And then on the 25th of March is I think it's slated for the board and the council to meet. So as always, I think we've had commissioners attend that brief if they choose to. And this will be the first time we actually held it prior to April. Usually we're doing April, May, June. So staff's prepared to do it. The report is the operations side of the report's completed. Christie's doing some polishing work on the other things and that we highlight in that. I'll make sure the board gets a copy of what we're doing. I just didn't have it tonight. I apologize for that, but yeah, we'll do that on 25th. It'll be me, myself, Chief Isotelo, Chief Anderson, Chief Maxwell, and Christie will be there at a minimum.
And Chief, it's kind of a two-step process on the Edmonds contract. There's this initial meeting with you leading essentially staff making a presentation to the city about the 2024 annual report to the city. And then a month later, there's a joint meeting of the board and the council together. And the expectation is all the board members will be there. But for Tuesday night, there's not a role for the board members to be a part of the presentation. However, if board members do wish to sit in the audience or watch on, I think they have a Zoom connection, they're welcome to do either. But just no expectation that board members are speaking or questioning the council or anything like that. It's your presentation.
This has historically been staff just for bringing the annual report, the metrics that are required in the contract, and then the other things we do, prevention and hopefully we'll have our cardiac save rates. I'm hoping that's validated by the time because the number is good this year. And some of the other things that we do that aren't traditional, fire response, which is fire trucks and medic units. And, we know, people know what we do. It's the unique things that are outside the box that people really have, specifically Edmonds likes to know how the community resource paramedics program is going. What have you done to enhance it this year? Are you seeing the same successes? And so that's usually where the majority of the conversation lands. And I don't suspect this year being much different.
And that's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, or is it 6:30? 6 o'clock. Okay, great. Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Chan.
Oh, no, actually, Roland has.
Commissioner Rowland's next. Commissioner Rowland, go ahead.
Question there for the chief. We know going into any meeting with Edmonds right now, it was with Edmonds that you're going to be doing the performance review, correct? Just want to make sure I didn't mishear anything.
Yes, it's the city of
All right.
Edmonds.
So we know with the annexation and with some of the objections that have already been brought up from, it seems like, and from previous years, that the kind of question we always get is, we've got these numbers, we've got these time limits, how are we doing on them? We haven't met them ever. And I want to make sure that either we have a good narrative to explain why, because the citizens that are, trying to oppose the annexation are going to always point to this. I think we've done good work there by increasing staffing at the station 17, I believe. That was 2 years ago that we did bump that up. So if there's any way that we can at least show progress at all, I don't know if those numbers have gone down or up off the top of my head. I will just want to make sure that we're prepared for that and we have at least a responsible way to frame it.
So just a real brief, our response numbers are within about 4 seconds of each other, almost across the board. So we're basically the same as we were last year statistically. Where things are very, very different is the neighbor unit utilization factor. And those numbers are way outside of balance again. Where Edmonds is using resources outside the city, I want to say between 13 and 18% more. And so we're outside of balance per the contract, where last year we were within balance, but we were getting more resources from the city of Edmonds. So that's the one that's way out. It's the one that they will talk about. It's the one that, had us do the, it's not remediation, but that's what we triggered to get it to go back to get those 2 additional people that they reduced in 17. So the rest of the numbers are very, very consistent. But their call load is up almost 400 calls too. So
Okay.
you'll see that when
Yeah.
we send out the report.
As long as we've just got a good, or we're ready for any of that stuff, then, and I have confidence in you guys. I just wanted to bring it up because I know that's the thing that they always try to, but, zero in on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fernhoff, did you have a question?
No.
No? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, actually, that was a question I was going to ask. Just before the meeting, I asked Sean about the situation. I think you need to emphasize that. If they need so many help, okay? And they all talk about their own free station deal. They're so focused on free station only. And I think we need to emphasizing you have more than 15 stations. I mean, that's annexing to us. You got 15 stations, okay? But then I also know this will be highlight. This will be a lot of people attending the meeting. Okay, just be aware of it. And you probably have people there, people more critical on that thing. So, and then you're going to give us a report before you, when you're done, when you're ready, before you go.
Well, I'll send
The report.
so we have to get it put it in the packet on Thursday. And so we should have it done by tomorrow.
Okay,
Christy was working on it today. We're going to finish it up, go over it with staff tomorrow. And so before I send it to the city of Edmonds, we'll send it to the board. So you'll get a copy of what we put in the commissioner or into the city packet before we actually put it in the packet.
yeah, I mentioned many times, I'm not sure we would do that. I think we should have really a cardio arrest went down there do the demonstration in there. I think that's critical for them to know, because there were so many people talking about, oh, why do we need to send many people? Blah, 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 okay?
So we're showing the video. So there will be a video that shows,
Not the live.
not the
Not the live.
live, but there's a video, and I forget which video it is.
It's the video.
Oh.
that they sent. But we're also working on doing a live demonstration at the open house this year.
So we are going to show the video at the meeting next Tuesday. And then at the open house down at Station 17, we are actually going to do a live demo like you had for cardiac arrest
Right.
at the open house at Station 17. What date? I can't remember the date, but the next open house we have is Station 17.
And also, I don't know, it's appropriate to say, I think we really need to invite those people come to visit. I know in Mill Creek, we did that, to come to our training, because many of the council members not even familiar with us. And I think that, well, 2 things it does is that get them some idea what it looked like. We have a big support system in here. And I'm hoping that Edmund News and other people really come with them and take a look at our organization. Because right now, they really don't know much about us, except the free station there, right? So I think that will help us for the annexation vote and everything else.
Commissioner Lawrence, Commissioner comments, go ahead.
Yeah, along the same lines for that meeting next week. Remember last week I was informed one of the staff that 22%, Edmonds takes up 22% of the community paramedics, and it's tied in with because they have so many adult family homes there, apparently. So per capita, do we have figures on per capita? What that, Edmonds has so much population?
The, I mean, they probably do have a lot of assisted living adult family homes, but I believe one of the largest drivers in Edmonds for those services is they have, I think, one of the oldest age demographics in that region of our area.
There's a combination, and historically, like, ever since we had signed a contract with them and we're the contracted fire service for when they gave up their stations, they've historically been taking more resources from the other areas.
As far as the community paramedic work, yes,
That, yeah, it can be that community paramedic and the regular fires, all the regular fire service.
I'll let Chief Eastman add regular, but as far as our community medic services, yeah, year over year since the inception of the program, they're usually at the top utilizer.
Okay, and for the
I don't think from a normal response perspective, they're out of line with what a service area 3 stations would have percentage wise, right? So if I remember correctly, they're right around 18% of the call demand. So they're right along, they're 20% of the stations. So they're really close to what you would expect them to be using based on population. So they're not using an increased proportion of the fire response,
then
if
how
that's what you're asking.
well, then why do we have that imbalance of
Oh, so yeah,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
no, it's so when you measure the NUF, there's two things that are out of balance right now. One is we have more resources going in the city than the city has resources coming out, right? And that makes sense because they have 3 stations and we're measuring against 12 other stations. The other thing that's out of balance is not just the NUF, but the transport balancing factor is off by about 13% too, where we're doing 13% transports in the city with, in other words, we're going in the city more times doing transports out of the city of Edmonds than the city of Edmonds is coming out and doing transports within the RFA. That was switched last year a little bit. And so, and that, there's lots of variability that plays into that. And it fluctuates year to year. But those are the two factors and part of that's wall time issue. I mean, there's all sorts of other variables that play into it. But at the end of the day, we know they need more resources, and we provide outside influences in and realize when we have a apartment fire, we have, a house fire, they're getting 5 units from outside the city every time that happens, because they only have, 4 resources staffed in the city of Edmonds.
Well, when
So
it comes to the meeting next week, or not so much next week, but with the public information meetings that Edmonds is putting on for them joining the RFA. I guess it could be pointed out that we'll be continuing to subsidize the citizens of Edmonds just based on this information. Even if they join the RFA, they're getting a more effort going toward per capita toward Edmonds, and so the subsidy sort of will continue. So are we going to be letting the citizens know that they're actually going to get more services and more resources put toward them per capita and per the tax dollar than the rest of the RFA, and they should be very appreciative of that, I guess.
I think the short answer is right now, this in 2024, they benefited from more outside resources coming in than their resources going out. Hence, based on the matrix in the contract, it's out of balance. And so they had the benefit of being part of a 15 station model, that not only provided, response in, but it also help transport the patient need to be transported. So I think that message will be clear, Commissioner Lawrence, when we brief it on Tuesday night. And I think it will be a continued topic of conversation as we move forward, because I think like everybody expects, there'll be whether the meeting's well attended or people are watching it on video, they will know when they'll probably request the packet and they'll have the documentation, the data. So I suspect that that there'll be opportunities to talk about that specific piece as we move forward appropriately.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you.
We're in commissioner comments. Any other commissioner comments?
Not about it, but.
Yeah, any other commissioner comments? Yeah, Commissioner Wittes.
Just wanted to tell the board, I told the chair, but I was asked by the State Commissioner Association to sit on a new committee they have for succession planning and strategic planning. So that's coming up. Roger Ferris looks like he's going to retire eventually, and they want to figure out what to do. So just letting everybody know. Thank you.
Other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? All right, we have an executive session up next. We're right at our break time. Why don't we take about 12-minute break to 8:40. And then let's do executive session from 8:40 to 8:55. So that's 15 minutes. Initially, we don't plan to take action, and this is for review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 4231-10-1G for 15 minutes. Don't intend to take action after that. And so we'll be in our evening recess for 10, 11, 12 minutes and reconvene back in the executive session room, I guess, back there, small room. So we'll be in a brief recess. Thank you.
The South County Fire regular meeting is called back to order at 9:15, and without objection, the meeting is adjourned.